Please help me welcome Melissa Taylor Gates.
Hey, everybody. So I'm going to start this off by saying I've given a lot of speeches in my life. I've presented webinars and presentations about mental health, but this is the first time I've talked about my own in public. So bear with me if I get a little emotional or anything along the way. So as Maggie mentioned, my name is Melissa, and I have been working in the mental health space for the past 8 years. Basically, I finished university, got into working in mental health, and that's where I've stayed. It's an area that I'm really passionate about, and I really love helping other people and being able to connect on the level that I'm on now, having experienced those things. I've gotten all the trainings you would expect someone to have. I have assist training, I have mental health first aid. I've presented on these topics and seen all kinds of discussions on them. And that doesn't make living with depression any easier. All my life, I knew people who struggle with their mental health. The first time it really came up in my life in a really powerful way, I was in high school, I was in grade 9, and one of my friends attempted suicide. It was actually the day before a final exam, and me and 2 of my friends and my mom went to her house, picked her up, brought her to the hospital, and we literally just spent the evening in the hospital waiting for her, ready to help however we could. And in the morning, we got up, having slept in the ER room chairs, and we went and did our exams. And that's the reality of what people do when they have mental illness, is when you're struggling or when someone you care about is struggling, there aren't always supports in place. And we're getting better at it, but there aren't always supports in place to help people through that experience. Beyond my friends, I have family members who also struggle, PTSD and anxiety, and having someone that you love and care for going through that experience is really difficult, especially when it's someone like a parent or a grandparent who is always taking care of you. That switch is really, really difficult to deal with. And it's, on one hand, it's really, really great to have someone you can be open with and talk to, and on the other hand, it's really difficult to see someone you care about in pain. So I've been there every step along the way for people, from hospitals to community organization handoffs to warm handoffs on the phone, to talking to people over the internet, just helping them get through a really bad night. And none of that prepared me for my own journey. I am a really privileged person. I have enough money and support and time and people who could help me through this journey. And a lot of people don't. So I think it's really amazing to have that. I struggled so much knowing how flawed the system is, knowing what people I need to talk to, and having people who would make the hard calls on my behalf. And it still took me years to get the support that I needed. So for anyone out there who is struggling, it is hard for all of us, but you're not alone. And strong supports really do make all the difference. So I sometimes think about these 3 different versions of me that exist throughout time. There's the old me, and the old me was this amazing person that I've now put on this pedestal as able to do all these things and be this person that I no longer feel like I am. There's the present me who's struggling with depression, but is trying to rebuild my life and trying to find new ways to engage in community. And then there's future me, which is this dream of what I want to be, and also the person I'm trying to do things for. So occasionally I will do something in the present, hoping that future me will appreciate it down the line. But I always really struggle with this idea of the old me. Excuse me. So the old me was very different than the current me. I had different wants, different passions in life, different things I did with my free time. But when I was a kid, I always was doing something. My entire life was about being productive and getting things done. My mom had gone to school when I was a kid, gone back to school as a young mom, and had gotten a really good job, and it was always built on me that you needed to really make something of yourself. So as a child, my Saturdays were jam-packed. Every single day was 8 a.m., you go in to do ceramics work, and you're doing skipping and gymnastics and cooking, and just every single minute of my day had to get filled. And that was how I got through a lot of my life. In high school, I was in every club I could be in that I could possibly do. I went with my friends every single night. In university, I finished my undergrad in 3 years and my master's in 1 year, and for a while I was working 3 jobs. It was exhausting, and realizing now how much that may have affected my mental health, pushing myself to such extremes. But that was normal. That was something people appreciated about me. They would always talk about how great it was and how I was so ambitious and I did all these things. And that was how I built my self-esteem on, was this idea that I could always do more. I could always be faster and work harder and get better grades, and I could be the best of the best of the best. So when I got my career in mental health, I started as a research assistant, working with Mind Your Mind, which is in this building. And I worked my way up through the ranks until eventually became a program manager. And I thought, okay, finally, you've done it. You know, you're 25 and you've done it all, right? Great job. You've got benefits and you've got a pension and you're set for life. And that's when my mental health really took a downturn. And it seems really odd to say that, right? Like nothing big happened in my life. I didn't lose anyone at that point in my life. I certainly had struggles like everyone does, but why this was the moment in my life that everything kind of changed, I couldn't tell you. People are always saying, oh, well, you know, was it building up from this? Was it this? Was it that? I have no idea. And at first, it was really subtle. I always was a person who slept a lot. I liked to take naps. And then it started to get more and more, and I was taking more naps. I was getting sad and using napping as a way to escape feeling sad. I was feeling really worthless, and I had a lot of self-blame for everything that happened. So if I was giving a presentation and suddenly the presentation didn't work, it was the end of the world in that moment for me. I started feeling like I couldn't think through things as well as I had. I always really liked doing puzzles and playing games and problem solving, and everything just felt really fuzzy, and I got really tired really, really easily. And I had really bad, my main symptom was anhedonia, which is basically when you just don't feel pleasure anymore. So anyone who knows me will know that I am a big gamer. I love gaming, and I have my entire life. I actually, through the course of getting therapy, one of my homework assignments for an entire week was go home, unwrap your game, and put it in the game system. That's it. Not play it, not engage with something I actually enjoy doing. It was actually enough of a barrier for me to do something that I maybe would enjoy, that I couldn't even take that first step. So there wasn't really any reason to do anything that I did in my life during that period, other than maybe it would make me feel less worthless in the long run. You know, so I went to work because it was expected of me. I paid my bills because it was expected of me, but nothing gave me any pleasure or any enjoyment. So for a year, basically all I did was I would go to work, use up all of my energy, being fake and happy and putting on this persona of who I wanted to be seen as. And then I would go home and I would sleep for the entire night. There was a good long period of my life when my partner literally had to lift me out of bed every morning and get me dressed, and where I did not spend a day for months without crying. And I had the sense that I couldn't slow down and take a break from the life I was living, because if I did, I would just break. I had to keep going and moving forward. And it was a really terrifying feeling that if you stop for 10 seconds, suddenly that'll be it. You'll be done for the rest of your life working in any kind of reasonable capacity. So when I decided to go get help, I actually didn't even go to the doctor with the idea that I was going to talk about depression. I sort of knew that it was something I was dealing with, but I wasn't ready to have the conversation. So I actually showed up and I was like, well, I'm sleeping a lot and I'm always tired and I'm eating one meal a day and I just feel really bad. And she sort of just kept poking me until I finally just broke down sobbing. And then she kind of backed off and she was like, oh, okay, there's something else going on here. And we ended up having a further conversation. And that led to eventually going to see a counselor at LHSC. I tried 5 different medications over the course of trying to find one that worked for me. Anyone who has been on medications and changed medications, you know how exhausting that is for your body, for your mind, for every part of your life. I was on one that gave me really strong feelings of self-harm ideation, and obviously, really big problem there. I had another one that made me super manic. I slept like 3 hours a night and I couldn't stop moving. I couldn't stop thinking. I couldn't sleep at night. And it was, well, it wasn't exhausting at the time, actually. It was nice, but it wasn't something I could maintain long term. And it felt wrong. It didn't feel like me. It felt like I was being puppeted around really, really fast at all times. And the last one I tried that was really, really difficult was one that gave me really severe dissociation, to the point where I would walk into my apartment and say, I know this is my apartment. I know this is my cat. I know that I need to pay my bills, but I had absolutely no feelings about any of them. Everything was just a blank slate as far as I was concerned. And I went to the doctor and said, yeah, I don't really care about anything anymore. And she said, okay, we're going to take you off it. And I said, oh, all right, well, I don't really care, so. All right, no problem there. So anyways, after 5 medications, she decided, okay, I'm going to give up and send you to somebody else who's got a better idea. So finally got in to see this therapist, talked to me for 5 minutes. He's like, okay, yeah, sure. We'll get you into some group therapy. It'll be fine. And then I spent about the next year trying to get through to his secretary so that I could get onto the list and actually get into therapy. And that's just one of those barriers that you just don't think you're going to have, is a year of just calling the same number and no one ever answering you. So there was one day I actually sat down. She only answered emails or phone calls between 9 and 12, and I called every 10 minutes for the entire day and left her a message. And the last few were just me sobbing and just begging her to call me back. And finally she did. Hooray. And that's just one thing. And I ended up having people who could support me through that journey, but like anywhere along that way, it would have been really easy to give up. And it was actually I did give up for a few months in there, but it was only because people kept saying, you really need to get this, you really need to do it, do you want me to sit with you while you do it, that I ended up being able to get through. So I did get the therapy finally, which is great. I did CBT at the hospital, which is a really intense program. If any of you have done it, it's 3 months, 3 hours a week. And you sit there with these people and you deal with really, really difficult things. So the first group I was in is all about behavioral activation, which is a fancy way of saying trying to change the way you act so that you feel better. And it's really boring stuff like, go to bed on time and eat a healthy meal and go out and see people once in a while. And every week we had a different topic and we go through that. I remember one of the ones I really had difficulty with was having fun. And literally what we did was we just played a game of Pictionary. A big group of us just sitting in this room trying to enjoy a moment. So for me, ever since I've been getting this therapy, I found it really, really helpful. But it's not easy. It's a lot of time and a lot of work. The homework takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour every single night. Plus the therapy hours, it makes for basically a part-time job. And that's actually what my mother said when I explained it to her. She didn't understand why I wasn't working full-time, and then I explained to her all the things I was doing, and she was like, oh, I see. You basically are. So the great news is I'm finally back in CBT again, so it's been really great. I just started this morning, so it's been a really mental health heavy day for me today. And this group is more focused on the cognitive therapy, so focusing on what are those fundamental beliefs that make up the thoughts that I have that make me more depressed. So it's been a journey, obviously, through. And the other kind of exciting news is that I am continuing my work in mental health with a position at Parkwood starting next week. So thank you. So literally one day of my week will be in the morning going to therapy at the hospital, grabbing lunch, and then walking over to a position at Parkwood to help other people with mental health. So I think sometimes we get afraid that because we struggle with our mental health, we're not in a position to help others, or we're not well enough. And for me, being able to help others and be helped by others who have mental health has always been a really, really important part of my journey. So that's basically all I have. If anybody wants to talk to me afterwards, I'm more than happy to. But thanks so much for listening to my little journey.